Urban-rural disparity refers to the unbalanced development between urban and rural areas. The speed of urban development is not the same as that of rural areas. To put it simply, there's a gap in the income and conditions received by people in the cities and those in the countryside. For example, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, in 2021, people in urban areas will earn 120.8 yuan a day, while those in rural areas will earn 46.95 yuan a day. Their incomes are not the same. In the long run, it will lead to urban and rural gains, unbalanced. In addition, there's an unbalanced economic development between urban and rural areas. Unbalanced development of urban and rural education, unbalanced development of medical care, unbalanced population aging, etc. There are several factors that cause the urban-rural disparity. Number 1, industrial difference. For example, in China, rural areas usually are devoted to agriculture, while urban areas are more devoted to manufacturing and service industries. Agriculture requires more physical labor and has a relatively low rate of return. On the other hand, manufacturing and service has higher rate of return. Number 2, labor force difference. As mentioned above, agriculture requires more physical devotion and has a relatively low rate of return, which makes it an unideal industry, especially for young adults who wish to earn money. This results in a trend of migration to urban areas. Usually first and second tier cities, people expect more opportunities and potential in urban areas. This results in a lack of labor force in rural areas, which makes development in rural areas more difficult, enlarging the gap between urban areas and rural areas. 3. Development speed difference. As urban areas develop more infrastructure and further strengthen welfare, education, health institutions, prestigious institutions are attracted to invest and occupy industries in urban areas, enabling a faster development speed, resulting in a positive feedback loop. Rural areas are less competitive and develop at a slower speed. This leads to a development speed difference to be larger and larger. However, how does the urban-rural disparity influence people's social and economic lives? The most evident impact is the vast number of migrants searching for jobs from rural areas to urban areas. The most rural areas, the effect of rural-urban migration was a rapid deterioration of the rural economy, leading to chronic poverty and food insecurity. These arise mainly due to the excessive drain of youth from the rural populace, thus leaving only the older and aged members to constitute the labor force of the rural areas. The young population leaves, their socioeconomic status is often insufficient for them to bring their kids as well. This results in the kids staying at home with their grandparents. Adolescent children living in skip-it generation configuration are at a greater risk of emotional and behavioral problems. This could be because aging parents are not as keen to monitor and set limits with their grandchildren. Teenagers undergo a period of self-discovery and identity awareness. Coming to terms with the fact that their parents are not in their life can affect their concept of self-value and self-worth. Besides this, migration to urban areas is placing increasing pressure on local government's ability to respond to the social service needs of urban populations. Lack of affordable housing has led to confrontations with well-organized settlers who take over unoccupied buildings to live rent-free or prevent demolitions, which has brought about a lack of housing vacancy rate due to the rapid job growth and housing costs that has increased. And here's a typical instance of rural-urban disparity. China's condition could effectively help to explain this social concept. As it was mentioned above, starting from economic reform led by Deng in 1978, China gradually changed from a planned economy to a market economy. This reform stimulated rapid urbanization. In 2019, the urbanization rate rose to 60.6%, however, accompanied by rapid commercialization and urbanization. The urban-rural disparity have widened incredibly. To a chart made by Journal of Economic Literature, the urban-rural disparity index rose from about 2.1 in 1984 to higher than 3.1 in 2008. At the same time, the Gini coefficient also nearly doubled during this period. This index measures the income gap between the poor and the rich people, who are mostly the people living in the rural and the urban areas. Also, according to London School of Economics, the share of national income earned by the top 10% of the population has increased from 27% in 1978 to 41% in 2015, while the share earned by the bottom 50% has dropped from 27% to 15%. This data reveals the considerable income inequality within China. Nevertheless, observing these inequalities, the government chose to narrow the gap between rural and urban places. For example, Beijing donated 530.5 billion yuan between 2016 and 2020 to support the poor citizens, and most of these people live in outlying villages. If converting this money into US dollar, we could get $80 billion with this effort. President Xi claimed in 2020 that there is no extreme poverty in China.